Well, folks, as it always is with most of my videos, we're going to have a little background noise. Again, we got a 5-lane highway out there, and everybody thinks it's a damn racetrack. But, well, what we're going to work on today is an old Husqvarna. It's a HU625HWT 22-inch, 190cc, 4-cycle, high wheel string trimmer. Now, I rescued this old dinosaur from the salvage yard a couple of hours ago just to see if I could tinker with it and get it to run. Now, we're going to start off with a lot of issues with it. The old fuel tank's got a broken bolt and still holds gas. The pull start's all broke on it. You can see that crap up there ain't even fixed right, but we're going to work on all this. I got another one. We'll make 2 out of 1, or make 1 out of 2. That sounds better, right? Yep. What we're going to do is walk you through the process of how to check for ignition spark to make sure you've got spark coming from the ignition system in this thing. And that's pretty basic, really. And then we're also going to check show you how to pull the flywheel off of it to check for a twisted keyway or a keyway that's half sheared. When you get one that's half sheared, what you're going to normally find is it's really hard to start. When it does start, it doesn't have any power. It'll actually run a little bit on the hot side. You won't really notice that, and it'll smoke a little bit in most cases, depending on the age of the old motor. Well, let's get started. Let me set this old tripod up here because, you know, we don't have one of them state-of-the-art facilities like some of these big companies do. But we're going to try to get you a really good shot focused on this thing. Like I said, we rescued it from a dinosaur. Rescued a dinosaur from the old salvage yard a couple of hours earlier. Like I said, we got one. We're going to try to fix another. Anyhow, first thing we're going to do is to check for spark. Pull your spark plug out. And let me get this camera tuned in here so I can kind of see what I'm showing you. And then maybe we'll have a little better shot at what we're working on. Let me close the old door so I got a little shadow on it. Hopefully we'll have enough light once we get that. See if that makes it any better or makes it worse. Whichever it does is what we'll have to work with. Alright, okay. First thing we're going to do is you can see the cover is already, the cowling of the cover has already been removed off of it. And we got part of the pull start mechanism here, which is broken. But to get this section off, you're going to need to pull this screw, this screw, this screw here. And then you're also going to need to pull one more, which is back here on the back side, right where my finger's showing, but you're not going to really see that. It's behind the back side over here. So once you get them screws out, which I've already got loosened up for the purpose of the video, so we can actually get through this a little quicker and not tie you up as long. Pull that screw out, and then the one up here on the very top. There we go. Let me see if we can refocus this a little bit where it's a little there. Let's see how that works out. Once you get this one back out here that I'm working on, that's the one that holds the oil dipstick in the side of the motor. You pull that screw out and pop this up, it'll come out just like that. Set that to the side, keep the screws all there. And like I said, there'll be one more back here on the back corner of this thing. Let's put 2 hands back there, straight down. Take that one out, and then the cover will come. One more back here on this corner, right here. Take that off, and throw this whole thing off to the side. Now we're getting to the coil, the ignition coil, and this is the flywheel. This is the fan that actually blows air through it to keep the motor cool. Now to check for spark, what you want to do is hold this spark plug up against the block of the motor. Don't hold it up here because you'll get a little shock. Put it right there and spin that old motor. You'll see a little spark. I don't know if you can see it in there, but there is. Let me see if I can shadow it a little bit with the cap here. No, that ain't gonna work either. Well, anyhow, you spin it, you'll see a little spark in there. It's a little on the weak side, maybe carburetor flooded this whole thing out. But you'll see a little spark jump right on the end of the spark plug there. Maybe I can get it down there a little lower. Yeah, you see it's sparking it pretty good. So we know ignition wasn't a problem with this old motor. So the next step we're going to go to, outside of checking the carburetor, which is the last thing I'm going to check. I'm going to take one off another motor I got and put it on there. You'll take this big old nut out of here. It's right in the middle of the motor. Let me grab my LTO, see what size we got here. Looks like a 1-inch. Put that 1-inch socket on there. And underneath the back side of this motor, where the shaft comes out, there's a big old hex nut on it. And you'll need to put, I can't get the camera over to show you, but you'll need to put that on the bottom of it and kind of let it work its way around there. And then you'll just spin that thing around until that wrench locks it in place. I'm gonna get to it here, folks, just give me a moment. All right, just like that. And then you'll kind of bind that wrench up back here in the corner where you got to pull on top of it, hold it steady, and pop that nut loose. Take your wrench back off of it, set it to the side, pull your nut off of it. Then that cover comes, this little part that goes to the recoil comes off, then the plastic fan comes off, and then there you got your flywheel. Now what you're going to find on a lot of these flywheels is if it's not running properly, let me see if I can get the camera over here. If it's not running correctly and it's hard to start, look right here in this area. There's a little key in there, and that keyway has got the shaft's got a little slot cut in it with that keyway. If it's lined up, that thing's in time. That's basically setting the timing on this motor. But if it's half sheared off or completely sheared off, that's going to be your main issue with these little small engines. And it doesn't just pertain to Husqvarna. Any Briggs & Stratton motor, period, that has a shaft in it with a keyway in it, that is one of the first things you'll always want to check. We had a lawnmower here a while back that I borrowed out, and the old boy took it, swore up and down. He never hit anything hard with it, but when it came back, it was very hard to start. And when it did start, it just did not have any power whatsoever. So I pulled it apart. Sure enough, he must have hit a big old rock. But to really check that out, just go to the bottom of the deck of the lawnmower, look at the blade. You can tell if somebody hit anything, that was really rough. And that'll give you a good indication of where you might want to start looking on a motor to make it run better or fix the problem. Again, that little old keyway, it's probably 3/16 or a little bit smaller, but it's got 2 screws here. You can make you a puller. Just come up with 2 bolts and put you a little plate across here with a weld you a nut in the middle of it and run down. But in this situation, I got a puller. So let me get my old camera set back up here, and I'll show you what I do, how I get it off. Now the threads I'm using in the screws are not the exact size, but I think it'll probably work just fine. Alright, well, here we go. Let me flip that over, sorry about that old hairy arm. This is the puller that I'm going to be using. It's actually an Automotive Harmonic balancer puller. It's got a piece here you can put in the end of it. You can use the flat surface or the round one. But you pop that back in place. Get your 2 screws that fit in there that are long enough to run through there just like so. We're getting there, folks. I'm old. I'm 60 years old, but I'm getting there. I apologize for the quality of this video, but my wife, I think she's on vacation again today, so I'm having to do the haves and have-nots part of this thing. Snug them old bolts up. They don't have to be super tight. Uh-oh, we got it kicked off to the side there. Let's get it back up there one more time. The washers want to stay locked in place. It doesn't want to. There we go. Let me snug it up here and get it kind of a little bind on it so it doesn't slip back off of there. Make sure you got it centered on that shaft, and then you'll put you a socket on here most of the time, or you can use a crescent wrench, whatever you happen to have, and just twist. Came off a lot easier than I thought it was going to come off. Take your puller back off. And if you don't have a puller, there's always a makeshift way, and I'll show you how to do that as well. Give me one moment. You can also take you a pry bar, which I don't happen to have one handy, and actually get in underneath here like this and have somebody pry on the other side, or you can try it. Just make sure you don't get underneath that seal on the top of that block. Apply you some pressure up here, you know, with something, a big pry bar. Pick your nut, put it right back in place. And once you put that nut back in place and it's flush with the top of that shaft, you can kind of tap it with a hammer. You know, just tap it, tap it, tap it while you're pulling on this corner here and putting a little bind on it. And if you tap it a couple of times, normally it'll loosen up and pop itself loose. Once you do that, then you just pull that booger right off there. It's going to want to stick because it's a magnetic field trying to touch here. This area right here is magnetic. This is not. So when it comes around, that's what generates a signal for the ignition system. But you see the keyway's in place, and there's your slot. Like I said, folks, that pretty much concludes this part of the video. I just wanted to kind of run across. There's a lot of people out there that don't really know. Putting it back on is a little tricky. There we go. That concludes this part of the video. I just wanted to show you what to look for when you got one of these Briggs & Stratton motors, or any other motor that runs on the same principle. Sometimes this little thing be all rusted up. You might clean that up. But if it runs on something similar, the same principle as this one here, that's the first thing you check for one that doesn't start easy, doesn't run very well, and has no power. Like I said, this is an old Husqvarna weed trimmer. We salvaged it from an old junkyard. I rescued it. We're going to go ahead and make sure we got all this fixed up, and it does have compression. You can check the compression by putting your finger over the hole and spinning that thing. Don't get your fingers in it. And you can tell by hand if it's making any compression. You can check it even better if you got the recoil on it and you have somebody pull it real hard. Put your finger over there, you hear it pop, 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 pop in there. So you know that the valves are all working and the motor has compression. If you got ignition, you know you should have spark and ignition. It should run. Then the next culprit will be the fuel system. And there's no telling what we're going to find in this one, because it's probably been sitting out in that old junkyard for a couple of months. But we're going to fix this part of it, put a new spark plug in it, and then we're going to put another video together on what we're going to do on the carburetor and the fuel system on this thing to see if we can get this old dinosaur running. So this is part one of the Husqvarna video, and we'll bring in part two when we get to the carburetor part of it, and then we'll try to incorporate all of it in that video if possible to see if we can actually get this old dinosaur running. Well, I hope I've given you some information that you can use, and you know, we'd ask that you hit the like and subscribe button on our videos. We're just a small mom and pop operation that trying to survive out there in this corporate world of YouTube. We struggle and we try, and the man above is going to be our leader. So again, hit the like, subscribe button. Stay tuned for other videos. We'll be making a whole bunch more. We're fixing to put one together the next couple of months on a homemade water wheel drilling machine that we have. I built several years ago. A lot of people ask questions on it. We put the first part of it up, but we didn't really spend a lot of time on actually drilling. So we're going to be drilling a well up in northeast Texas with it, about 240 foot. And we're going to be putting that video out there because there's a lot of people interested in that. So stay tuned, folks. Again, hit the like, subscribe button. I hope you enjoyed it. Signing off.